Many thanks, Niyi. Lawmakers in Nigeria have called for the protection of local meter manufacturers in the nation's power sector. They say that the phase 2 of the World Bank's funded national mass metering has allowed the access of international meter companies into Nigeria's meter market. The lawmakers say the project, which will make electricity meters cheaper, however, will be at the detriment of local manufacturers. Marvelous Obomanu brings us more details.
The introduction of service-based tariff in the Nigeria electricity sector in September 2020 has put increased pressure on electricity distribution companies to close the metering gap in the country, which will enhance the efficiency of revenue collection. According to Nigeria's Electricity Regulatory Commission, the current metering gap in the country is over 10 million meters, which comprises of unmetered customers, as well as those with obsolete meters that need to be replaced. While the CBN has disbursed the sum of about 47.83 billion for the procurement and installation of about 856,026 electricity meters across the country, lawmakers are saying Nigeria cannot keep awarding contracts to foreign companies.
We have for a very long time have manufacturers of meter in Nigeria. There was one in Zaria, which I know very well. Today they are not functioning. Where we take loan from World Bank, when the money comes, we take it to China and they empower them. So I think there is no better time that this motion will work than now, when the power sector is working on how to see that every household has a meter.
If the federal government and other stakeholders do not make urgent intervention, and indeed this Senate, the ongoing World Bank funded National Mass Metering Program Phase 2 would ultimately encourage foreign company participation, loss of jobs and funds, to the detriment of local manufacturers and causing economic retrogression.
The Senate also questioned the reason behind borrowing for meters from foreign countries, who insist Nigeria must patronize their own manufacturers when indigenous meter manufacturers exist in the country.
Time has come for us to start growing our local manufacturers, our local contractors. All across, we take loans from China, we take from the World Bank, we take from everywhere, and then they insist that we must use their contractors and their manufacturers. That does not help us to grow.
Those who are in support of prayer want to say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The lawmakers are asking for the meter intervention fund be channeled to indigenous meter manufacturers. It is believed that this will help build local capacities, create more jobs, and reduce unemployment. Marvelous Obomanu reporting for News Central.
To discuss this, we are joined by Adetayo Adegbemle, CEO, Power Up Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us in Nigeria tonight. You heard some of the concerns expressed by the senators there. They believe that the loan is going to promote foreign companies' participation against competent and pre-qualified local meter manufacturers. And the ultimate concern is the loss of jobs and revenue. Do you share their concern? If yes, why?
Yeah, in fact, the report I just heard from, when I just heard per se, but the report from the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Assembly, House of Representatives, is something that I'm very glad about. Those that have been following the history or the events will also know that my organization raised this issue as far back as February, March this year. And when I listened to some of those honorables and senators speaking there, it's obvious that they come across the reports that we published, because it doesn't really make sense for us to go and take a loan, especially a loan that we are forced to pay back. We are going to pay back, and we are not able to use it to increase our local capacity, We are not able to use it to create employment in Nigeria. We are not able to use it to stimulate, local capacity, for us to meet our local needs. So it is definitely a welcome development from national. I mean, it's a joy that they came on board to come and join the advocacy that we've been pushing. And yeah, I mean, we would like to work with them. In fact, we'd like to work with them to make sure that Nigeria does the right thing.
Most people will say most people say there is pro, there is con, there are pros, there are cons to every scenario. So the Senate is asking the federal government.
I will not follow that line of thought.
Okay.
If you're with me.
Okay. So what are the pros? What are the real pros? If we know that it will benefit.
The pros is massive.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, I think the network has started acting up. But what would be...
I can continue from where I left off, if it's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, there will always be naysayers in any argument. Let's take that one by this. I mean, as a statement of fact, it's what we have always been experiencing. But you see, like the Maxim say, that the best time to plant a tree was maybe 10 years ago. The next best time to plant such a tree is today. Now, we are so used to taking loans to fund consumption in this country. And it's strange. I don't know why we are so comfortable with that. We take a loan, international loan in dollars. We are forced to pay back in dollars. So our economy is dependent on dollars that we are not spending in Nigeria. We take a loan to go and buy something from China. You keep the industries in China, you keep them running. Their people are employed, producing these things every day, while our own industries keep growing down. Now, let me tell you the funny part of this conversation is that metering is a tenured thing. So in another 10, 15 years, we are back to the same cycle where we will now need to replace those meters that we have borrowed money to install now, to come and replace them again. So in 10, 15 years, are we going to go back to China again to fund China's economy while we are paying back those loans in dollar rates?
Okay, let's look at the alternative. Because in interest of time, let's look at the alternative, the suggestion that was put forward by the National Assembly. They are suggesting that the TCN should negotiate and engage the African Export-Import Bank. They are also suggesting African Development Bank, and they said that they could also go to the CBN for intervention fund instead of relying on foreign loans, which you are clearly against. So is this a better alternative? Because funding has to come from somewhere.
Sure. See, this is obviously a better alternative because if you look at the national mass metering program that we are running, that this loan is meant to come in at the third phase, we have done the first phase. The second phase is already, the contract has already been signed out to people, but of course, waiting for CBN to release the funds. So we are already evolving, we're already developing the capacity. Most of these people that we are talking about, most of the local manufacturers that we're talking about today, some of them are telling government that they don't even want government to pay. Just give them a guarantee that once we deliver this social number of meters, our funds will be paid to us. That's what we need from you. So we have all those alternatives on ground. Why is federal government not sitting down with meter manufacturers? What are your capacities? What can you deliver?
I guess
that's the
That's the purpose of conversations like this and the one that's being had at the National Assembly. But before I let you go, there is something that Senator Victor Ume said in leading the motion. He insisted that members of the Association of Meter Manufacturers of Nigeria are capable of producing world standard smart meters. His words: what is your assessment of the association's work in this regard so far? They're not coming from a vacuum. They've done quite a number. Are there areas, how good are they? And are there areas that you think they should work on if we are to push this part that you are suggesting?
Well, you see, Senator Ume is absolutely right in his assessment. And I'm going to say this because I have had the benefit of working in that sector and I'm visiting some of their factories. So I knew what they were, what the factories were like 5-6 years ago. I know what their factories are like today. So yes, they have the capacity to give us the world standard. They have the capacity to even evolve Nigerian standards as even beyond the world standard, that the world can come back and come and adopt. But we can't expect them to do this in a vacuum if if there's no assurance that what do you call it now? We're going to patronize them. That's what I'm looking for. We're going to patronize them. We're going to make them, especially when we have an existing problem of a very huge metering gap. 10 million meters is not a small meter to a small hole to fill. And again, like I said, it's an ongoing thing. So why are we not developing this thing so that we can employ people in Nigeria? And at the point, we can even start fulfilling metering need for the West African region. We have the AFCTA, so we can do for Africa as a whole. It's going to help us with GDP. We're going to have less dependency on foreign exchange. We're going to have the point of start sourcing for raw materials by ourselves to feed as feedstock to these factories. So yes, we have the capacity, but we need a government policy that is intentional, in patronizing these local manufacturers and developing the subsector of the power sector.
Adegbemle, thank you very much for speaking with us.